From Hopalong Hollow, and a happy Independence Day to all of my fellow Americans. This might be coming out pretty late on the 4th of July, but it's really a video for any time. So in honor of our American flag, we are picking up the colors and the flowers of the red, white, and blue. And I've chosen from the garden some Queen Anne's lace, some vitex, my favorite little short tree, actually also called a chaste bush, the beautiful red bee balm that we had growing in the garden, a couple of sweet peas here, and we had a little bit left on the Canterbury bells, and I had to purchase the red and white carnations because I didn't have any growing in the garden. And we're mixing and matching the transferware on the table with blue and red. All these purple flowers, but they're the closest to blue that I could find at this time of the year in the garden. And our pie, although made with blueberries, turned a little bit purple when you mix in the cream. So this is actually a blueberry mousse tart, and I think it's going to be delicious. Starting out with cacao tea, which was Martha Washington's favorite chocolate shell infusion. And chocolate tea was really popular in the early days of our country. You can see that this is just toasted cacao shells. And on the back of the tin, we have an image of our First Lady, Martha Washington, and she liked to sip it at breakfast time. George Washington wrote to his agent, "She will thank you to get 20 pounds of the shell of cocoa nuts, if they can be had of the chocolate makers." So this is one of the teas. Second tea of the day is Colonial Boohee. And this was one of early America's most favorite teas. Popular, in fact, that all tea came to be known as boohee rather than tea. This was the most imported tea that was brought to America. And most of the tea destroyed during the tax protests before the Revolutionary War were this boohee tea. This is a black tea blend and lightly smoky. I love this one. It's really, really pretty strong. I'm pouring the tea, this is the chocolate tea, from a wonderful teapot from Lenox that I chose because of the little colonial characters on here. But the name of it is actually Liverpool. So this is called Liverpool. So it actually was probably representing a port in Liverpool, England, but it looks very American to me, so this could easily be a colonial port. It could have been somewhere where they dumped the tea. Boohee tea into a Enoch Wedgwood cup, called Countryside. We have poured the boohee tea from a calico patterned teapot from Arthur. Also having, along with our blueberry mousse tart, we're having fresh peaches right off the tree. The best way to eat peaches, in my opinion. And I was so fortunate that we got so many peaches this year, although many of them didn't make it. A lot of them just fell off onto the ground, and then the heat sort of knocked out a lot of the others. I'm combining transferware plates today with blue and red. This is a coaching scene by Johnson Brothers. Beautiful transferware plate is Romantic England Derbyshire Hayden Hall. Little bowls are Currier and Ives. Okay, wish me luck as I cut into this tart. Really need to serve this chilled. When you're decorating your pie with flower petals, make sure you use edible flowers. Now, sweet peas, as you see here, they are not edible. Sweet peas are not edible. Bee balm is. So I put little bee balm. Pansies are edible. And even sweet William flowers are edible. Nasturtiums, of course. We didn't have any blue nasturtiums. They're really good. If you like mousse, and I love mousse, this is a very actually light pie. Serve it chilled. I like the ginger snap crust, but you could also use a graham cracker crust, which would be a little less hard. This is really crisp and crunchy. So give this a try. And now I want to show you a book about we Americans. Share with you one of my favorite books that I've had for about 25 years, but this was actually published in 1975 by the National Geographic Society, We Americans, and it simply covers the scope of America, the history of America, from the Mayflower all the way up to the 1970s. We Americans. This is such a beautiful book. This is such a beautiful book, not only for its pictorials, its wonderful old photographs, but also for the fact that it's simply telling the story of America. As someone who loves history, I am extremely interested in not only the history of other countries, but my own country. One of my favorite presidents there, President Eisenhower. And the number of subjects covered in this book is really, really fascinating. Illustrations, the photographs, the daguerreotypes from the Civil War to the American Indian, the frontier man, the frontiersman. Just look at this wonderful photograph. This is Old Glory displayed by patriotic textile workers in World War I. America fought in both World Wars. Many American lives were lost fighting for freedom. Actually, my father fought in World War II, and he was in the Air Force stationed in the Pacific and flew on a B-52 bomber. Some of the images in this book are images you could not find from anywhere else, because the American experience is completely unique. the original homesteaders. Poor man may have a home. With these words, President Lincoln endorsed the Homestead Act in 1862 that gave a settler 160 acres if he worked for 5 years. Thousands thronged the Great Plains, and there formed claim clubs akin to the miners' vigilance committees to keep order and thwart claim jumpers. The homesteaders sank roots, sweated, prospered, and posed for the itinerant photographer John Curry and his wife, emptied their Nebraska sod house of all its status symbols, sewing machine, Christmas wreath, and a caged bird to soften the silence with a homey chirp. Sometimes we Americans tend to glorify other countries over our own. I know as for myself, I'm pretty much an Anglophile. I love all things British and English and British villages and English tea and all that. But that comes with still loving my own country and being glad that I was born here in America. I was born in 1953, so I've been around a little while. My husband and I always say we are so glad that we grew up in the era that we grew up in. Delving into history is really very fascinating. I think I've always loved history, but particularly European history, British history, and World War I, World War II, and of course the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, and the history of my country. And I think if you really want to spend a good deal of time learning about your land, about the ins and outs, the good, the bad, the ugly, the marvelous, the fantastic, the heroic, the patriotic, see if you can find this book, or something very much like it. And of course you'll likely find a used one. That's how I got this one. American, or anyone else, if you're interested in the history of America, please try to find this book. It really is a treasure chest of information. And in the meantime, from Hopalong Hollow, we will see you next time, either in the garden or a Hopalong Hollow Emporium, or possibly a visit to the potting shed. Bye-bye.